that I think are important. It's actually drawn from Techstars and Entrepreneur First in terms of their investment readiness work. So it's not a bad list to start you off. But also, I'd really encourage you to think as we go through the session, like, what's the stuff you're afraid of answering? You know, what questions might be out there that, you know, there might be holes in the work you've done so far, or things you figured out, or assumptions you still have to test. Like, those are the areas that I think will be really worth spending time on. And the last thing I'd say is from the last session earlier today, some of the areas that I think I'd really like to spend time on today are, first of all, thinking about basically innovation and what innovation means, how you are different, what makes you special. So I'm going to be asking you guys to share some of your thoughts on that. So I can see some of you scribbling. So if you want to jot down some of your thoughts on that, that'd be great. The second is commercial model. So who you sell to, how you reach them, and for how much. And even better, how you retain them as a customer. And then the third part was about traction, which I think is a kind of often misunderstood or overlooked part of startups. So those are the kind of three categories I most want to look at. I think one of you might not be on mute. Maybe Johannes? There's a little bit of background noise, so if you're not on mute. Yes, awesome, thank you. Cool. So yeah, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ed. I've been running a lot of the workshops over the last year. My background's kind of a mixture of education and entrepreneurship. Over the last 10 years, I've been kind of co-founding ventures, helping grow other people's ventures, and then doing a lot of stuff in like venture building and startup acceleration. And most recently, I've been actually out in Bogota, and I'm kind of on my way home through Mexico now, basically like trying to walk the walk with you guys to actually like discover, research, develop, and launch the MVP of a new startup based on child psychological development. So building a platform for parents to understand how their kids develop, to not feel alone when taking, you know, those scary steps into parenthood. And helping to strengthen their kids' kind of psychological development in areas like growth mindset and resilience and stuff like that. So I'm like in the same kind of phase as you guys at the moment. And over the years, I've been through a whole bunch of different startup competitions, and you know, have done some things quite well, have done some things really badly in terms of pitching, in terms of Q&As. And so I thought I'd start with some of the things that I wish I'd done differently in the past. Hands up if you're pitching with a team member. And by the way, I probably can't see all of the screens, so maybe like the team's hand up thing will be helpful. Okay, cool. So that's good to know. One of the things I've found in the past is that when you're on stage, knowing who answers which questions just helps, because sometimes there's a bit of like, do you want to take that one? Or two people speaking at once, or people interrupting each other, and it can kind of give off not quite the right dynamic for your team. So that's really worth doing. The second thing is sometimes after pitching, and then you go into the Q&A, in terms of the body language stuff that Sam and Howard were talking you guys through last week, we kind of relax and then start doing this like weight shuffling from one foot to the other, or scratching our head or whatever, crossing our arms, maintaining good posture. Again, just keeps that credibility level high. If you're someone like me who never knows what to do with your hands, you can put them behind your back or in front of you. But just, you know, keeping focused on that, I think, is really important. The other thing I'd say is that sometimes it's tempting to over talk, to say everything that you could possibly say to answer a question. And sometimes actually there's like, it's kind of the length of the question is inversely proportional to the quality and impact. And as I said to the group earlier, just like in a job interview or any kind of situation where you're being asked questions, structure just helps give real authority to your answers. So there are many different types of structure, but the two that I find most useful are the kind of STAR structure and then the power of three. So STAR is like situation, task, action, result. So let's say the question is, tell me why you founded this business. And you can say, you know, the situation is actually, I've been researching this topic alongside my doctoral thesis for the past 4 years. And alongside that, I found a problem that desperately needed solving, for which there weren't solutions out there. So I went about doing this, and the result is, etc. So you're basically breaking your answer into 3 components that makes it really clear. Then the second is the power of 3. I don't know why, but for some reason, grouping information into 3 bullet points lands more in the human mind. I came, I saw, I conquered. Education, education, education. So, for instance, if you are asked, how will you use the funding, which is for sure a question you should all be preparing, and one we're going to touch on in a moment. You know, you can say, if we receive the funding, we have a clear 3 areas where we're going to invest. Number 1, in the team to bring in a digital marketing manager to help our go-to-market. Number 2, in the product to help open up lab space to develop the next stage of our research. And then 3, in sales partnerships to help strengthen our opportunity for commercial revenue. I don't know why, but those piece of information in 3s really works. And even better, if for structuring your question responses is to start with some signposting questions and to end with an impact statement. So a signposting statement is almost like preparing your audience for what you're about to say. So for example, how will you spend the money? You can start with something like, I cannot underestimate the transformative impact that this money will have on my idea. We'll invest in 3 areas, right? So suddenly you've engaged the audience, and there is something about being on a judging panel is, you know, you want to be part of this program, but also you want to feel wanted, right? Their decision is a big deal, and they want to back people that they really believe in. So that signposting question, that signposting phrase can really help with that. Equally, if you're asked what makes your idea special or what makes you innovative, you can again start with a signposting question. Our users across London are faced with poor choice because current solutions right now lack 1, 2, 3. Our solution is the only one out there that does 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that kind of opening framing statement can be really powerful. And then the last part of your answer is about impact. If and when you're successful, what happens to you, to your team, to your venture, to your idea, and what happens to the impact you're having? So again, how will you spend the money? If we have this £20,000 and we invest it in our business, that means something extraordinary, that we can get this idea out into the world 6 months faster than we would have done otherwise. This means we can scale 30% faster than we might have done. It means that we can sell this to lower income households for 40% lower than we might have done, right? Like, what can you prove in terms of quantifiable measures to evidence the impact that funding might have? Any questions on that? I can see a hand up, but I think it might be a legacy one from earlier. Zainuddin? No? Okay. Who on this session has been in like a pitching Q&A before? Fassi, Alok, Henry, a few others. What did you find helpful? Or, you know, what stuff did you learn from what maybe didn't go as well as you'd hoped? Feel free to unmute.
Maybe try and be as direct as possible. Try not to waffle.
Yes, yeah, structure really, really helps. Alok, I think you'd put your hand up there.
Yeah, I just said try not to kind of beat around the bush too much and get kind of like lost in the answer.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Was that you? Just it's always hard to see who's speaking.
Yeah, that was
great. Ariel, I know you were here last year. What did you learn?
Yes.
What advice have you got?
I would say, especially last year, I was a lot earlier stage, and it was definitely the first time I'd ever been in a pitching question and answer scenario. So if it is earlier stage, just try to have a really clear roadmap of what you're doing and what the sort of steps are to get from point A to point B, and answer just point B, basically, and not try to necessarily share the larger vision in the question rounds, I'd say, if it's a specific question.
Great. Frida, I can see you on the call. Hello as well. You were in the finals last year, right?
Yeah, exactly, with Wazi together. Well, I guess what I remember is that since English is not my mother tongue, and if I get nervous, I just forget all the words. And like, for example, last year happened that I did not even understand the question. And then I remember, because you were just saying, yeah, if you're a team, you should understand maybe with body language or so who takes the question. For me, it was also very reassuring that Razi was standing next to me. So when I didn't understand the question, even though it was, we decided who takes which question, and it would have been one for me, but my brain froze. So Razi was able to jump in. So maybe that is also even like as a tip for others, even if you are a team and you decide who takes which question, maybe when you prepare it together, you still might want to know a bit about the other things. So in case there's a brain freeze happening, you can just
that's really good advice. And actually, I think that touches on something really important, which is, I suppose, about composure and actually the amount of time that you are allowed or can afford yourself answering questions. So Frida mentioned about a question that might be misunderstood. If that happens, just take a beat and say, could you actually rephrase that question so I completely understand? Right? That's completely fine. Okay. And in general, I think basically buying yourself a little bit of time before answering a question can make you seem really confident. So jumping in immediately, you probably won't come up with your best stuff. But if you say, thanks so much for the question, I think that's really important for us to consider. The way we'd approach that, and that little break, it feels to you like a million seconds. For the judges, not at all. And actually, just like with your pitching, leaving a pause makes you feel more confident and makes you sound more confident. You can also say things like, thanks for the question. I'm just going to take a moment to reflect on that. Again, buy yourself a little bit of time. Great stuff. Who else has some reflections from previous experience? Heathcote, I saw your hand go up for a question or something. Oh, you're on mute.
No. It was just a general thought, but I think I guess exactly what you're saying about pausing and just answering the question. It's so hard, or like trying to put, when we were doing some practices before, it's like repeating the question in your answer, so that it shows that you've really heard it, and like, you know, the form of words, and that with you know, as the intro to your answer, repeating the question, I found was quite helpful.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, that can be really helpful. Anyone else want to share some experience from previous competitions? Not Cameron? Your hands up.
Yes, I'm sorry I missed the first part of this session in 5 minutes, and I'm not sure that does everyone will have the same question as how will you spend the money, or after that will everyone will have the different question about their business?
Yeah, good question. So I felt we should start with this question because in my experience, I think it's the most likely to come up, but there's no script for the judges. There's no determining what questions will come up. So today is more like maybe picking out some of the key areas to practice. And then I have this document with a whole set of questions for you to kind of prompt you to prepare over the next few days. Okay, cool. So you will have seen in the chat the first question, which is how will you spend the money? I think it's really worth as many of you as possible kind of tackling some of these questions. You know, this is an environment where you can, you know, it's safe to try stuff out or be imperfect and all of that stuff. So who would like to go first in sharing their answer to that question?
Well,
Ariel,
in our case,
go for it. Oh, sorry.
Vasu, you can go first. That's fine.
oh no, please.
So for Catalyst, winning the MEP award would mean being able to fund a knowledge transfer program for a developer to come over and work for 24 months on a network streaming security system that will underpin and allow the software infrastructure for Catalyst. So this is really critical and really important. So that's what we'll do with the funding.
Great. So I'm going to share some comments when I have them. I think, you know, it's really clear to me that that person is like fundamental to the product, but I think you can really sell that more. Like for Catalyst to be successful, we need highly skilled people to help develop the product, and we would use that money for 2 years to bring in an expert to help speed up the development of that product, the impact of which would mean that we would have hugely robust technology and be able to launch our product 2 times faster than we would have done. I'm inventing stuff, but like, you know, that quantifying the impact can just help kind of elevate your answer. Okay,
because I guess in this case, a KTP, it also means having like expert guidance from cybersecurity and bringing together experience with software systems engineering, data science, and security, so that we can have like machine learning programs with system streaming security, so we know what's being tracked from point A to point B within not just the granular level of a neural network, but also the systems themselves. So maybe I don't want to get technical, but that's really technical, and that's why we need lots of guidance in the KTP program. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Who would like to go next? Vassi, I think you're next up.
Yeah, sure. So what I wanted to say earlier is that actually we have part of the answer to that within our pitch. So we are going to actually say what we would like to use the 20K for, and it is to build an online marketplace that will extend the reach of our physical hubs to thousands of creatives, many more than what we are able to do right now with our physical hubs and hundreds of voice providing companies. So we will basically invest into a beta testing, actually a beta product, and then testing, part of the testing, and marketing and promotion mostly.
So when you say investing in the product, is that investing in a person to build the product, or licensing of, open source developer?
Yes, development team. Mm-hmm.
Great, exciting. Yeah, I think that's really clear. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
Yeah, I can go.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so with the £20,000 from the London Mayor's competition, it would enable us to take the first steps to filing our patent on a globally novel medical device, which is important for our business strategy, and we're unable to enter production without that patent. So it's a huge step for us.
Great. And again, to elevate that answer, fundamentally, a patent is about creating what is called a moat around your business. So some kind of defensibility. So, you could say something like, our product has the opportunity to secure market share through patents and developing something that no one else is doing. That means that we can secure and grow our share of the market faster. And so that's why we're going to invest 10 of the 20K in, a patent application. So just like reminding the audience of just how important this stuff is, with kind of little signposting comments.
Thanks.
And, like speed, market share, price of product, quality of product, these are all ways of kind of measuring that impact. Great stuff. Okay, who's next?
Shall we go?
So
we have a kind of double whammy answer as to how Mayor's Entrepreneur can really give our business a lift off the ground. The first is that the money will help us roll out our prototype in a pilot testing scheme across London. And the second is that the support from the Mayor's office will help us to partner with TfL, with the GLA, with the mayoral authority as a whole, in order to get that pilot in place, because our business is really centered around the London stormwater drainage system.
Great. So that was the first part, is that right?
Oh, it was both the money will help us realize the pilot, but the support from the Mayor's office will help us to establish those partnerships, which will enable us to carry out the pilots in situ in London storm drains, because they're managed by TfL, local councils.
And what would that look like if you didn't have the money? Or how easy, how possible would that be without the money?
Have you got any thoughts on that, Anaid?
I think the simple answer would be that it would take us longer, in a sense where the development process would be a lot longer. It would be a lot more friction in kind of reaching out to these authorities, where if we do have the right relationships within the London water management system, it would be a lot easier for us to kind of approach these bodies and have some credibility when we kind of engage in conversations with them. So while the money is going to definitely help, what we're also kind of really looking for is the credibility that the competition will kind of afford us.
Yes, and I think that's just a really powerful thing to say. This competition is not just about the money, it is about the partnerships and credibility. So you can say, you know, what we are trying to achieve is highly impactful, but also highly complex. And we are dependent not just on money, but the support and partnerships around us to secure a pilot. With your help, we believe we can speed up the rate of product development or time to market entry, or by, you know, twofold, or half the time it will take us to get to market. That means more lives impacted faster across London to help solve this problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's just like elevating from the what of what you're doing to the why, to really think about that impact. Great. Thank you. All right. Who's next?
Thank you.
Alec, jump in.
Mine's more of a question, actually.
Sure.
Say you were going to spend this money on maybe achieving something or developing maybe like an international patent or something, and you do this with the sole intention to be more kind of investor ready, or more kind of like an investor would want to invest in you more if you had like X and Y done. Would that be like a good answer to say? So like with the 20,000, we'll maybe do like an international patent, as this would make us more kind of likely to receive a larger sum of investment from like an external angel or something down the line. Or would that kind of detract from the use of like this money for something like now?
Yeah, I think you know, there's all kinds of different answers to this question, and I think unlocking future capital is actually, you know, quite a strong message to say, which is like, you know, this is why people do match funding, so their 20 grand can actually become 500 grand in the future. So you can say, with this £20,000, we actually think we can unlock 20 times that for future funding, which would radically increase, you know, the time for us to scale into international markets, build the team, build the product, whatever it might be. So I think that's fine. I would also, at least my hunch is that if you're going for international patents, that's not just about investment, right? That's about securing potential market opportunities into the future. So that's also about revenue, I imagine. So, you know, we can apply for multiple international patents, which will help, you know, safeguard potential revenue streams in 5 European countries over the next 3 years.
Yeah, the one thing I was thinking of, because this is all kind of orientated to London and the impact like the product and solution will have in London, we're talking about international patents and revenue streams in other territories kind of shoot like ourselves in the foot a little bit.
Interesting. I think it's always hard for me to answer these because obviously I'm not a judge, but fundamentally, you know, like ambition sells. So it's almost like when you answer a question, you can say, you know, we can have transformative impact in London, and in the future we see this shaping lives across the whole of Europe, and we want to take what we're doing international. So start with London and then grow it from there.
Awesome, thank you.
Who hasn't gone yet? Zainuddin, Amira, I think your hand is up.
Yeah, sorry, I can't turn on the my video right now.
Yeah,
I also have more of a question.
Sure.
So would this be a question like this a good time to bring up if we have received other funds like from Innovate UK or something that we want to drop, and to say that, well, almost like, well, we have that to develop our prototype, then these funds would enable us to move into product development or to market faster? Like, would this be a good time to drop that information?
Yeah, it could be. I think, you know, getting any money from Innovate is a real success. Congrats on that. It's very hard. So I think that does give you credibility. You also don't want to, I suppose, make the judges feel like you've got tons of cash sloshing
Like
around.
we don't need the money. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, however you want to structure that best. You know, we're very lucky to have received a grant from Innovate UK to develop the first version of this prototype. This £20,000 is fundamental to the next version of this, which will get us that much closer to launching this to our users across London.
Right.
So you kind of remind them that you won that grant, but also stress the importance of the money that they're offering.
Right. Right. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
No worries. Who would like to go next?
Yeah, I can go. So
Great.
just it's so my group, we're basically making these tiles and panels that will save solitary bees in London. So and what I wanted to ask was that, so we have already gained some traction and we have a potential client, and the only thing that's stopping us would be the funding would really allow us to fabricate like 300 panels, which can potentially save 30,000 bees by summer. So from our calculations, so we wanted to mention something like this, and also the idea of how we can use that funding to not just fabricate but also to promote our product to other potential customers.
Okay, so it'd be a mixture of kind of product development and manufacturing and marketing.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, you can say this funding has the potential to help us save the lives of 300,000 bees. Start with that. That is powerful. Okay. I think that was the number you said. 30,000? 30,000. Just up that by 10. And the way we're going to do that is invest in two different areas. One is product, the other is marketing. In product, this will help us go into manufacturing faster to be able to develop these panels using these different techniques. And the second, with this investment in these marketing areas, it means we can reach our customers that much faster.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Heathcote and Frida. Frida's knitting away.
Well, I like this question was answered by Vasi, and that's how it will be in the final
session. Oh yeah, of course you guys are working.
Yeah.
And similarly with me, Ariel would be answering that question, although I did have one thought on that, which was, if we are bringing in £20,000 is a sort of funny amount of money. So if we're saying that we're going to bring someone over and have them for a year or something, or help them develop a product, like I don't know how much should we break down, like the £20,000 figure, and how precise should we be in that, or is it more big picture? And
I don't think you need to go into so much detail. I think explaining the categories of where you will invest the money is enough. If you do want to go into detail, it can be super high level. 10K into a machine learning engineer, £5,000 into a patent application, and 5,000 into paid advertising. But yeah, you don't need to go into too much detail. You just need to prove that you've done the thinking about where you need to invest in your idea. Cool. Any other questions or thoughts on this question? No. Okay. So the next question in the chat is, what makes your idea special? This is like the ultimate opportunity for you guys to sell yourselves. Who would like to jump in with their response to this one?
I can start if no one else wants.
Go for it.
And Razi, that is one which I would have not known who will answer that, but I can try, and you just add. So I would say with Renee Materials, we finally offer companies an alternative to current waste disposal methods, where they currently stuck with worst case landfill, then incinerator, best scenario recycle. We offer them a reuse option. And then on the other hand, we are for our other target, the creators, they are in a position that, or we know that 93% of them are interested in sustainability aspect and materials, and they would love to source it sustainably, but they currently can't. So with Renee Materials, we can offer high quality material to a low price to creators.
Are there any other competitors doing what you do right now?
So what makes us unique is that we are creative, like we target the creative. So there are platforms which specify on the construction side. So they have a B2B model where they take from demolishing sites and they give it to other companies, where we take ours from the retailer and SME size, industrial waste, and we give it to individuals, and they all come from a creative maker background. And that doesn't exist in the form. There are scrap shops around London, but they don't deliver in bulks, and they don't deliver, like they're then more targeted to DIY people, whereas we are the well curated practitioner creative.
So that,
plus,
yeah, go ahead.
I guess what Vazi and me also have to understand, since our pilot is physical and we have most of our data came from our physical circular material hub, but we are there to pitch for the digital one. So we have a lot of insights from the physical one, less for the digital one. So for the physical one, what makes us there unique as well, that we are within creative institutions. So we are with the material in the areas where it is actually needed. So I guess that's also for me now interesting to know, or like we have to understand if we always divide it into and answer it into, or how.
Yeah, so I think that last point is really interesting. So there's a few things here. The first is, if you believe you are the only person doing something, I would open with that. We believe we are unique in offering B2C materials for creators across London. No one else is doing that. Number two, we offer a very intuitive, simple way for businesses to not just recycle, but actually reuse their materials, cutting their waste by X amount. And we offer that at a price to creators, which is 30% lower than what they might spend on the high street or through traditional procurement. Like adding in little bits of stats, elevating it by talking about your uniqueness, I think is really beneficial. And the last point is about like how you can secure your customer base. What gives you an advantage in securing your customer base? And I know you guys are directly tied in to that world, as you said, from, is it Central St. Martin's, UAL? Can't remember. Yeah, you know, we have direct access to these creators themselves because, you know, we have access to a database of these people. We already know 300 of them. You know, like what do you have that other people who might want to get into the space don't have? And I think this kind of touches on the broader point of what this question is really about, which is not just like what's cool and exciting and novel about your idea. That is part of it. But fundamentally, the way that I think about innovation is about market share. How do you create, retain, and grow your share of the market? Okay, so like a patent is an amazing moat because you can launch something that other people cannot replicate legally. So the only person that a customer can buy from in that category is you. So this moat, like in those olden day castles, is like something that defends you from competition in the market. So patent is one. Another might be about access to a customer base. Like the guys at Rene, they have a foot in the door of the arts and creative scene across London. That gives you a huge advantage. Another might be saying that you are the first, so you have this first mover advantage, so you can get ahead of the game. Another might be about your approach to design, production, manufacturing, that means that the actual production cost in the future at maturity of your product will be X% lower than your customers. There are so many different ways to make your idea defensible, and they're kind of broadly in three categories: product innovation, business model innovation, and then operating model innovation. So the product, like, what is your secret sauce? What is your patent? What is your proprietary algorithm? What is the, you know, year of R&D that you spent on this that other people just like don't have the time to catch up on, and you're ahead of the game? That's your product stuff. What makes you quicker, faster, cheaper, better quality than your competitors, such that they will choose you? They will choose your product. Then in terms of business model innovation, how do you price it? How do you distribute it in such a way that it's more affordable, it's more accessible, and that you can lock people into your product more easily? So, you know, some different types of business model innovation. Gillette might be a surprising example, but if anyone's bought a Gillette razor, they're super cheap, but they lock you in because you have to keep buying the razor heads, which are really expensive, and you can't buy anyone else's. So they've created a moat around their product, and they are upselling you for the entire life cycle. I've spent tons of money on Gillette, so I've never bought any other razor, you know. So that's one. Another is, you know, back in the day when Apple bought iTunes, unlike Gillette, the upfront cost of like buying one of these is really high, but they lock you in to, you know, the Apple Store and iTunes to add incremental value onto that initial upfront cost. That is like incredible business model innovation. Other things might be like pay-per-click advertising, you know, that Google innovated around, where they had like auctions on paying for adverts. Another might be, you know, like cross-subsidized funding models, so the price for lower income families goes down. There's tons of different ways to innovate around your business model. And then your operating model is like how you produce, manufacture, distribute, warehouse, that again makes that experience quicker, cheaper, higher quality. I think a great example there again is like Amazon Prime. I don't know how the hell they managed to do it so quickly, but like the reason Amazon have got such extraordinary market share is, why would you go anywhere else if you can get that product to your front door within 24 hours? Like, that is insane. So that's like an example of operating model innovation. But all of these things are about basically capturing and growing your market share. Does that kind of help understand how to frame this question? So it's more than just like doing cool, exciting new stuff. It is doing cool, exciting new stuff that fundamentally helps your business succeed. Who would like to go next on this question? Not, come on, go for it. Unmute yourself.
Yes, can I answer this question about
Yeah, go for
what makes my idea special? I'm going to serve you a plate that was made from food waste itself, and every time you have a dinner and every time you eat, you will think carefully about what you consume. It's like what you eat, and you will get to know about the source of the ingredients that you eat and how is the process that gonna be end up and how we can preserve all the waste like that by supporting my idea about using the food waste going into the pottery again.
Yeah, I love it. That's super interesting. So again, to elevate yourself there, you can say, right now, one of the flaws of food and the food that we eat is that we do not know about the source, the supply chain, the impact of bringing that food to our table. We don't know that information. And, the impact of that is, increased food waste, carbon emissions, whatever. We are unique in that we actually open up that information to our users, right? It's like that framing statement kind of prepares the audience to be like, oh, cool, what's coming next? And I think a little bit more information about like actually how you do that would just help. Just add a little bit more information to that answer. Was there anything else that you think? Sorry.
Actually, I will mention it in the stage, in the script of my pitching already, but I would like to point out more focus in about my unique selling point in another way. Moreover than talking to you like that, my unique selling point is about we have partner in the many restaurants in Bangkok, and we already have the existing customer, and we would like to expand this community between the pottery industry and the restaurant industry from the Thailand to the UK, because actually chefs they know each other and they always source for the plating and also for the ingredients that they would like to serve their audience, as well as my business that I would like to serve to my clients with the storytelling about the food ingredients.
Yeah, that's great. Like a big part of this is what is the stuff that you have that would take someone else, like a new entrant, a long time to set up. And I expect, building partnerships with restaurants, building the knowledge, the understanding that they bring to you, that takes time. You have that already. So I think that's really valuable. The more you can associate how your kind of presence in Bangkok can have an impact in London, the better. Right now, I was kind of like, I found myself trying to join some dots, like making that really explicit in your answer will really help the judges. But yeah, really, really great. Who would like to go next? I've just seen a hand go up. Who's that? Oh no. Ariel? Oh, I think you were on mute and talking at the same time. Do you want to go ahead? Oh no, you're on mute again.
Sorry, my computer is really about to melt down. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so Catalyst is special because it's a consortium between London-based academic researchers, for-profit technology companies, and third sector or nonprofit organizations. And our mission is to future-proof Londoners in the AI transition. And I mean individual people. Catalyst makes sure that AI products are built to benefit the rights of people. So this means that people are actually the owners of their health data, and they have control over where it goes and how it's used. And this is by licensing their data to researchers or companies. And Catalyst provides the digital infrastructure that allows Londoners to have agency and fractional ownership of the next generation of AI products.
Love it. Such an interesting model.
Thanks.
So my thoughts on this, like, so if I understood this right, Catalyst means that I can make money from my data. Yes. So
Yeah.
I would almost start with that.
Okay.
You said it, but it wasn't as direct as just saying that. And it's like, you know, this kind of pyramid principle. At the start, you just go in with the most rudimentary language to get your point across, and then you can embellish it. So that's the first thing. The second is that you have, I expect, something really powerful, which is this consortium that you've established.
Yeah.
But you did not explicitly say what the benefit of that consortium was.
The benefit is like to be able to get people that are for profit and people that are doing research and people that are like actually reaching out in communities to all work together on something is actually kind of challenging. And that's something we've already done. And it means that you have all of the voices at the table to work towards a common good, which is also on the edge of kind of like innovation in AI. And then it brings you into a London-based community space to demo it and test it. So ethically, it's like kind of sound, or at least as close as we can come to. This is one approach to an ethical AI place-based solution where people are participatory.
So that is a really powerful thing. You know, the amount of discourse at the moment about the ethics of AI. There's like an amazing article from Jeffrey Hinton that's come out in the last couple of days about this. Again, I think you can just express that head on. You know, right now there are major risks around AI that we are directly tackling through Catalyst.
Yeah.
Number one, we are bringing together cross-sector partnerships from civil society to public sector to private sector through a consortium model that will help secure the ethical integrity of our work and ensure leading actors from those different sectors are bringing the knowledge we need to make this successful. Like, again, I'm like kind of thinking aloud a little bit, but like really being specific. Rather than just saying we have a consortium and I'm like, that sounds cool, but I don't know why. Really being specific. So ethics, is it also about like access to data sets, data sharing agreements? Is it something about like your revenue model, market access? Like what else is in there? And then the second is at a time where people might feel exploited by AI as an individual. We have this unique business model that lets individuals make money from their data to create, you know, a more equitable future for AI across London. Like just pulling out the impact rather than the inputs will really help elevate that. So you've got so much to talk about there, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's really helpful to hear you say it back because it sounds like really clear. And I think for me especially, I'm always so in the weeds that it's hard sometimes to like make it clear.
Yeah, for sure. And like we all are, right? It's hard to like step back and have a
but the part
dispassionate
that's, pardon me,
sorry, yeah, no, you go.
I'm right. It's just my connection is a bit bad in my poor laptop. But yeah, so focusing on the impacts of our kind of like reasonably complicated model and focusing on the ethics and how, you know, the benefit for people, it's that you can make money from your data rather than people stealing it from you and then using it to sell you things without your consent.
Yeah, I mean, you know, those are the things that came out for me. I think in general, rather than, you know, what I was kind of on the fly repeating back, I think those things are really important. But like moving from the what you do to the why and the impact, that's the stuff that will really land with your judges.
Okay, so the one thing I'll just say is, and not to take too much time, but the impact is so much around like, how do you, who's out there building like the digital roads that will allow you to have an equitable digital AI kind of future right now in London, and that's something that we are actively doing, and we have these partners, and just it's, I guess sometimes if it's topical enough or to find the piece that everyone knows about. I think that's the part that sometimes is a little bit tricky, is to know what people actually know about, and what this audience actually knows about, and maybe try to use that. So perhaps that's ethics and rights to data.
Yes. And I would say just the feeling of exclusion in general. I think one of the challenges of any new innovation, and AI is like an extreme example of this, is like the accretion of power. Those who know, those who understand, stand to generate huge power, huge wealth through AI, and those of us who are left behind don't. But you're beginning to level the playing field there.
Yeah, and maybe a sense of urgency, because this is a field that's kind of being shaped now. So maybe that's like a why now, I guess. But anyways, thank you so much.
Yeah. No, that's great. Okay, thank you, everyone. We are going to pause there. It's just gone 10, no, 5 in London. I'm upside down. Yeah, 5. Let's take a 5-minute break, get teas, coffees, whatever. And if you can be back ready to start at 5:10. And if you have, you know, those questions that are kind of milling around your brain that you're scared to answer or unsure of, bring those to the second half. We'll carry on this like uniqueness and innovation question. We'll also talk about go-to-market strategy and leave space for other questions that you might have about your pitch. Cool. See you in a bit. Thanks, everyone. Hey guys, welcome back. If you're back in the meeting, please do unmute and turn your videos back on. So I can see who's back. It's always the challenge of teaching online, to kind of feel like you're slightly shouting into the wind. And even better, I've just written in the chat a little note, if you can add a thumbs up reaction, then I know how many of you are back. I've also reshared that list of questions that I put together for you guys. So yeah, feel free to open that up, save it, whatever. Just I think a really good reference point for you and your team, if you have one, to think about some of the questions that you might face next week. Okay, so just while we're waiting for other people to rejoin, would any of you like to share your response to that question that we're looking at about uniqueness and innovation?
Yeah, I'm happy to go.
Go for it.
So I would say there's two things that make our idea unique. One of them is the way in which we came up with it, and the second one is the outcome of that process itself. So we're in a medical device company, and normally user-centered design is not really a massive part of that process to designing new medical devices. But we decided to do it with this device. So prior to actually even going into the lab to engineer anything, we ran a national recruitment campaign, and we asked all of those people recruited to list every single problem they've ever experienced, and then to rank them from 1 to the end of the problems. And then we selected the #1 problem and then worked on that problem with them in co-design sessions over 7 months. So the whole product was co-designed with a number of people with limb loss from phase 1. So that's how we know it's relevant, which is great. And then the outcome of that is that it's a globally novel device with a core feature that has never been done before by any other prosthetic company, hence the requirement for a patent. So those would be my two things.
Okay, that is so compelling. Again, going back to this point about like the moat or the time investment that's really hard to replicate. If I tomorrow decided to go into the prosthetic space, it would take me, it wouldn't take me 7 months, it would take me a lot more than that because that's not my background. But like, you know, I would have to I would have to invest huge amounts of time and money, and you have this massive head start on everyone else. So, you know, the outcome I expect here is faster time to market, more engaged customers, and people who are more likely to use and continue to use your products, unlike your competitors. So I think that is really strong. And I think, again, to use some of that language to elevate your answer from what it is, so those 2 points, super compelling, to like the ultimate impact of that. So, you know, what is the ultimate impact of these 2 points? Well, #1, we have an engaged research user base who we know want our product, love our product, and will continue to use our product, unlike other people out in the market. And second, we have a patent against this, which means that we can actually protect our innovation from competitive threats in the UK and beyond. You're like, yeah, bring it on.
Thank you. That's a good answer.
Who else would like to share their answer to this question before we move on? I'm looking at the list of you, trying to pick out who hasn't gone. Francis, Henry, Adesh, Valerie.
We can probably go for that.
Yeah.
Possibly me and Adish, and maybe someone and Vanessa. So our innovation is, I suppose, validated by the fact that we have a patent pending. We can remove particulate pollution from water, currently at 98% efficacy, using no electricity, no moving parts, and no membrane, without having to develop any extra land area during the installation process. And when compared with other storm drainage solutions, they are using as much as 50% of the land area being developed in a given installation. So those are our points of novelty.
Very, very cool. I've got loads of questions about what you're doing. Probably don't have time to talk about them now, but it's very exciting. So again, to elevate that answer, you have the constituent parts of like a really knockout answer there, but think about the ultimate impact of that. So you're not using the same amount of land, you're not using constituent parts like membranes, etc. What does that mean for the adoption time, ease of decision making when it comes to procurement in the businesses that you're selling to, the cost of production, setup, maintenance, all of these things will mean that the likelihood for someone to buy from you rather than the competitor will be proportionately higher. And that's what you're trying to sell. Like, you have the inputs, but now the next step to make that answer really strong is the outcomes. Like, more people will buy from us because we're cheaper, we're faster to install, we don't need all of these different moving parts to make it happen, right? So just adding those bits into your answer just, I think, takes it to the next level. Awesome. Okay, so, well, just before we move on, any other thoughts, comments? Does anyone want to have a final go at sharing their answer to this question? Speak now or forever hold your truth, peace. Can't remember the quote. Okay, so we're going to move on. The next question I find is one of the most overlooked at this stage, which is basically how you make money, your commercial model, who your users are, who you're selling to, how you reach them, and how much you charge. So let's spend some time thinking about this. Who would like to share their answer? And I'd actually encourage the people who maybe know the least about their commercial model to stick your hand up and go first. Yeah, Heathcote.
So if I were to have a go at this for Catalyst, it would be our users are people, you know, are Londoners who need to increase their health literacy, and we are reaching them through community outreach groups such as the Westway Trust, who are our partners. We're selling to stakeholders like councils or healthcare providers who wish to increase that, and we will charge them £9.99 per user a month.
So the users will be the Londoners looking to increase their health literacy?
Yeah, this is we've now slightly we've taken out some of the health focus, but this was the focus that we were having before. So this is in a way now it's like data literacy. We're trying to expand it, but so much of that is about health.
I just wanted to say, so the health aspect is like the first market, like the first group, because it's a way to contain like what is otherwise like an uncontrollable amount of data, and it also is one of the most highest regulated areas. So that's why that was our first like customer group. But of course, it's not limited to that. It's just that it's a good place to start because health data has the most, if you want to go through ethics to do health research or use health data, it has like the most regulation. And so it's a way of yeah, just starting with something really like contained, but it then becomes a very large cell in 2 minutes.
Yes.
And maybe not the thing to focus on. So that's why we've kind of initially we were focusing a little more on that, but we're not kind of leading with that, even though it's so for the purposes of pitch, it might even be worth not getting into the health first market, because I think it just confuses the product.
So can I share my thoughts on this? I don't quite understand your business model, and there is an argument that says being more specific can help actually bring to life how it works. The models that I find hardest are when people are like, we sell kind of to everyone. Everyone might need this, and you're like, that doesn't actually make it clear. It feels like you haven't done as much of the thinking through. So, like, if you say councils or, healthcare networks, CCGs, the hospitals, whatever, like very different groups, and the procurement and the sales process is hugely different. So I wonder if there's a way of saying, we see huge opportunities to sell this to a whole number of groups, from health institutions to local councils, but to bring that to life, we see the biggest opportunity in healthcare. We will be selling a subscription model for access to our platform at $9.99 per user, and our users are these people, and we would sell to this specific person, job title, whatever, within a health institution. Like, that level of detail actually helps me understand that you've really figured out how you're going to sell this stuff.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so right now, I was actually really unclear about what you're selling and to whom.
Yeah, so it's like batches of similar data. So in the health context, the example would be, let's say I'm making a rehab app for painful knee osteoarthritis. And to do that, I'm a product developer making an AI app for rehab. I need lots of data of people with painful knee osteoarthritis. And so in our model, the chain is a tiny bit more complicated, but it's that we are actually providing a batch of people, or like arranging a deal between a bunch of people that have painful knee osteoarthritis and the people who need the data, so that they can actually they license their data to that company and that product, and they then have a kind of fractional ownership in that product, because their data was crucial for building it.
So if I understand this right, actually, in that example, your paying customer is, let's say, the startup or scale up who are in product development.
Yeah.
So I think that really helps me, because that's my understanding from earlier was that you might be selling into the NHS, right? So like, so you give, let's say your model is you give innovators and those building vital new products and services access to the data they need to reinforce and strengthen those products they're building. To bring that to life, if we are working with a startup working in the arthritis space and building a product, we license them that data, but also give them access, give the users access to revenue on the back of that.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Just going that level lower has really helped me understand that revenue model a lot better. So again, that like pyramid principle of starting with the generic, we see huge opportunities to serve those developing products and services across London.
Yep.
But to bring that to life in the health space, where there is huge opportunity because of regulatory and other risks around data, this is an example. I think that just helps it cut through.
Okay, cool. We'll phrase it that way entirely, because like also it's really difficult to access data. and then the
Yeah.
rates, the data, if you want to, like, oh, I have the perfect AI team, but like we don't have the data that we need, and then
Yeah.
it's like meeting that need as well, to but also going back to the consortium driving innovation, because it makes it easier to move forward more quickly, because individuals are the ones who are able to consent.
Yes, I see this problem the whole time in medtech in particular.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and this goes for other people on this call who might be in this situation, like I actually get a bit scared off when people say our customers are like the NHS or local councils. The NHS is like the hardest customer possible. The NHS basically doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I know that's a strange notion. It is like
Nice.
the most complex, fragmented organization to sell to, and then local councils are broke.
Yeah.
Selling to a local council, like, good luck with that. But if you suddenly say, actually, we're selling to innovators, you're like,
Yeah,
okay,
right.
wow, you know, like there's huge commercial opportunity there. So by digging a little bit deeper, we got there. So that's great. Thank you.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much.
Who would like to go next? Amira? Yeah, great, go for it.
So as software-based artwork, we are developing our software to be available on a subscription basis for buildings and businesses. So it's B2B SaaS. And so buildings and customers will be able to subscribe to our graphics and artworks. And in addition to this, we're also developing bespoke versions. So those will include both hardware and software elements, and they'll be installed in larger buildings and kind of co-developed with businesses. And additionally, we're also exploring the commercial potential of our pilot phase. So we've already got interest in developing bespoke pilots for specific buildings and institutions, and exhibiting those and marketing them kind of in the public space as well. So.
Okay, that's great. Wait 1 sec.
Yeah.
I'm kind of sharing space in this apartment with a couple of different people on different calls. Okay, so this is great. I would say, like, can you tell me about the kind of building, who would be your ideal customer? Is it corporate office? Is it something else?
It's buildings that already have building management systems in place, and smart buildings as well. So they've already digitalized their energy usage and infrastructure. So we're developing a plugin for those systems. So
what kind of building is that?
I mean, it's a building with a smart. It's a smart building. So it's a building.
So give an example of,
Well,
are we talking about like a
City Hall is a where we have that in our pitch. So City Hall is actually running almost entirely on renewables, yeah. But and it's got like sophisticated building management system in place, but you wouldn't know any of this from going into the building. So the graphics and the artwork would be building off the data that the buildings are already producing.
Yes. Okay. I asked that to kind of help, again, bring more specificity into the answer. Like, if you say, we work with buildings, you could say we work with buildings such as governmental, local government, and corporate offices that have implemented specific systems that we can harness. Just to kind of make it really clear on how it works. And did you talk about the pricing model, like how much you would actually charge?
I didn't talk about pricing, and I mean, pricing is something that once we start prototyping, we'll understand better. But we have some sense of the pricing for the bespoke versions, and we kind of want to lead with bespoke. But it will be, yeah, it will be B2B SaaS, so it will be priced higher than like at a consumer level. But we actually, I mean, yeah, I didn't talk about pricing because I don't. Yeah, I mean, we'll have more confidence as we actually build out the prototype.
Mm-hmm. Can you give like a ballpark range of what the monthly subscription cost might be for a building?
An annual basis, and we think it's like, you know, it's about 3,000, not 3,000 to 5,000.
Okay.
For large.
There are so many things that every startup hasn't figured out.
Yeah.
Naming your assumption
okay.
actually, again, just adds credibility. So you can say, we are still testing our pricing model, but we expect the annual subscription cost to be somewhere between £3,000 and £5,000.
Yeah.
Which is very different to say, you know, to not naming a number, because then the judges can think about the market opportunity, the revenue opportunity. So I think it is worth including, even if you haven't, you know, tested that just yet. Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Would anyone else like to test out the answer here? Alec?
Sorry.
Alec's hand went up fast.
Yeah, so we're working on wearables for the aging community to mitigate musculoskeletal conditions. And essentially our user population can be split into two main segments. We have 55 to 75, and then we have 75 onwards. And each of these two user profiles require kind of different accessibility and different user needs. So we'll be using 3 different pathways. So B2C, which will be looking to target directly to the 55 to 75 user and friends and family of the 75 plus. B2B, B2B2C, which will look to target the 75 plus demographic, and we'll do this through care homes, and private healthcare organizations and physiotherapy clinics, those private groups. And that's the medium term, and then the B2C was a short term implementation. And then our last pathway is B2B, and this is the long term, and this is directly to the NHS to help rehabilitation post injury or fracture or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Great. On the B2C model, would you make direct sales or through retail partnerships?
Exactly, through direct. Actually, it'll be a mixture of both. So we'll look to go directly to the users through like websites, but then we can also look at making partnerships with clients such as high-end gym groups, because this is very much in fitting with kind of the user attributes. So the individuals that would buy this kind of product care very much for their health and fitness and their musculoskeletal health.
And what's the typical price?
Yeah, so for B2C, we're using a hardware-enabled SaaS model. So we have an upfront fee for the hardware and then a monthly subscription after. So for B2C, it'd be £269 for a complete wearable, and then a £499 additional cost to basically use the data that this wearable provides. And then B2B to C is a £200 upfront fee plus a £20 recurring monthly service, and this includes maintenance and upgrades. And then for the healthcare, it's a £5,000 annual fee.
Great, that's really helpful. I would say when practicing that answer, see how you can structure it to like cut down on the amount of information. So in each business model, there's like a subscription plus a bolt-on, and there's 3 different channels. So I would like draft out that answer to talk about your 3 different channels and kind of make the pricing model super concise. But yeah, great stuff. Cool. Frida?
So Vinay has 3 main revenue streams. One comes from as a consultancy and license fee charged to creative institution, where we come and set up circular material hubs. Then the second revenue comes from the creatives as a customer fee, which will be charged in some cases. Some cases, the university will pay for it so that it's free for the students. In other cases, for example, in the digital version, there will be a fee for the creatives. And the third revenue comes from the suppliers, so from the companies. They will be charged in order to get quality data back on the material, or that we take on their waste and their leftover, and we give them back quality data on what they then can use for the industry and so on. So it is important for us, for Renee, that we have these different revenue streams coming in, because that gives us a stability.
Mm-hmm. And what is the price in each of those three models?
So based on what we tested at Central St. Martin's within circular material hubs within a creative institution, that costs the university at the moment 30K per year, and that includes that we are open twice a week, staffed by 2 people with a consultancy fee, and during term times. For the customer fee, let's look at the digital part. So then if they would purchase an object on our future digital platform, there will be a transaction fee plus a 7% amount of the pricing of the product. And then the company fees, that depends on how much data they want to get back. But at the moment, since we are not there yet to have all that data ready, they pay for the transportation, so that it doesn't leave us with any costs, but actually saves them even money.
Yeah, great. So you've got all of the information. I think the next step is to, again, just make it really concise. So again, the shorter answers sometimes just cut through better. So you can say, model 1, which is consultancy fee, which typically annually is 30K. Model 2 is a B2C marketplace, and we take a transaction fee of 7% per item sold. And then C, in terms of waste disposal and data sharing, we would typically, typically charge £14,000 per business.
So you would add the numbers already, because you just asked a follow-up question, but that usually doesn't happen, right? So it should be already in there.
It's like, use that immediate opportunity to reassure them that you've done the thinking. And for your last model, it will be a little bit finger in the wind because you haven't got there yet. But your assumption is per deal, on average, it would be X amount. And it just helps build confidence in the judges. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think sometimes less is more, in terms of the transaction fee, and then a fraction of the sale on marketplace, just name a number or name a percentage.
Makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
Would anyone else like to trial out their answer to this question before we move on to the next one? Okay, I'll take that as a no.
Oh yeah. Hi. Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Hi. Yes. So basically, Gorilla is a retrofittable device that removes the particulate pollution from stormwater. So currently, we have a working prototype that's we plan to price starting at £250. And our primary customer right now is water companies in the UK. As by installing our device, it will save money, reduce the basically wastewater treatment cost for them down the road by installing our device. And our kind of production cost per unit is estimated at £25, as we plan to manufacture and outsource the manufacturing to potentially manufacturer partners in India by just standard injection molding parts with polyurethane as the material. Yeah, so basically so our business model is B2B. So we sell directly to our customer, mainly the UK water companies.
And it's £250 upfront, one-off. Was that right?
Yeah.
And that's per company.
That's per unit.
How many units might a company buy in total at maturity in a given year?
I don't think we have really figured out how many units that they need to buy, in terms of so basically we when we sell our device to the water companies, it basically help save money, not making money for them. So that's something that we kind of need to figure out by doing the institute testing with one of the partners, and then we can kind of say what is the efficiency per drain, and then then we can kind of benchmark that cost and make that a case for the
so
customers.
I suppose what I'm driving at is, you've got the unit economics quite clear in terms of production costs and pricing. As a judge, what I want to find out about is per water company, of which there are not a huge number in the UK, how much revenue you're making. Are you selling 10 units, in which case you're making 2,500 per year? Are you selling 1,000 units, in which case you're making $250,000? I want to know, I want to have a sense of that volume to know what your potential annual revenue could be, right? So
I see.
You may not have that answer yet, but having some notional way of being able to tell the judges basically how much money there is out there to be made helps them quantify the business opportunity. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So basically what we did is we estimated by installing 250 units in London, it will reduce the instantaneous turbidity of the tents during a heavy rain event by 37%. And so we want to kind of partner with, I guess most of the drains. Well, at least we designed our prototype based on the drains that's owned by TfL. So TfL is not our customer, but they will be implementation partner. And TfL has 47,000 drains in London alone. We're not saying we want to install our device in all of them, but that would be the ambition. I don't know if it would be too much, and if it's at 250 per unit, that would be 9 million. If we manage to install it in all,
or even more.
Even more. So I
12,
don't know
12 million. Almost.
So how would we kind of could we kind of, I don't know, I don't want to kind of say our ambition is to install our device in all of the drains, and this would be $9 million in revenues. We managed to do that within how many years? 5 years.
Why do you not want to say that?
I don't know, because I think right now it's because we haven't really figured out how much we can sell per year, right? And then but at least we know there are 47,000 drains that could be installed if we were kind of able to do our institute testing and sell it to our customers, and that would be a projection, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't be afraid of naming that.
Okay.
And you can call it, the potential annual revenue in London is based on the number of drains. And at 47,000 drains, we can be making 12 million per year. That's not saying we will, but that is the total market size. So again, as a judge, I'm there's, serious revenue to be made. And, this is me reflecting back based on your initial answer, which was £250 per unit. If you're selling one of those per customer, I'm I don't quite get it. But now I'm wow, okay, there's actually 12 million approx, total potential revenue. So that really helps.
Thanks.
Awesome. So the last, well, I'm going to pause here actually. Did anyone have any like questions that might be outside of the questions we've covered off so far that they want like specific advice on? So the next question I wanted to look at was about traction. Oh, okay, there's a hand up. Who is that?
Summer?
Summer? Yeah. Do you have a question?
Summer, do you want to unmute?
Oh, sorry. I think I forgot to remove the
All right, okay.
hands up. Sorry.
Cool. All right, well, we've got about 15 minutes or just under left. So the last section I wanted to think about was traction. And this is basically how you evidence to the judges that you are going to be successful, and the way you're going to be successful is to figure out or validated with your users that there's really high demand for what you're doing. So I think there's like, often people answer this question by talking about competitions won, awards won, investment raised. That is proof, that is evidence that some people believe in you, and that really gives you authority. But traction is really about your customers evidencing that your customers want your product, which an angel investor is probably not your customer. You know, Innovate UK or whoever you might have won grants from, they're not your customer. They are your supporter, and they believe in you. But there is nothing stronger than validation data from your customers themselves. So in terms of answering this question, yes, you can name competitions you've won and, you know, money that you might have raised, but that is not what validation really means. Okay, it gives you authority with the judges for sure, but it's not validation. So here are some different ways to think about validation. Like, number one, best kind of validation is like making sales. So we've already started selling and 10 people have given us 500 quid each for our product. Great. I know that a lot of you have not launched your product, and that's fine. Like most finalists are still at kind of idea or like pre-revenue stage. So there's other ways that you can do this. It might be if you're working in like a really R&D intensive product, that you might have had conversations about particular pilots or industrial pilots. You might have letters of intent. You might have people, you know, signed up to use your product in the future once it's ready. For others, it might be that you've started building a mailing list. So you might have set up a landing page and have started driving traffic to that landing page through paid advertising, through content marketing, through your user research, and you've started building this database, and you can start telling a story there. So you could say, let's say from your user research, you know, we've had conversations with 50 potential users, and actually 25 of those have signed up to be a potential user in the future. So you can say, of the people we've spoken to, 50% have signed up to be a potential user in the future. That's powerful. Or you could say, you know, we haven't yet launched our product yet, but of, you know, 200 people that visited our landing page, or 2,000 people, actually, you know, 30% of those gave us their email address, which is like soft commitment. There is a soft transaction that has happened that proves their potential intent to buy. And all of these are like different means of proving or validating the demand for your product. Does anyone have any questions on this? Yeah, Heathcote.
I just had a question about traction with our product, with our consortium. We've kind of got these great commitments from people at Royal Holloway, from data security experts, and then artificial intelligence experts, Data Spartan, and the Westway Trust Community Outreach Group. They're not our customers, but is that still traction that they have that they've committed to working with us?
Yeah, it is to an extent. It's not like true kind of. I suppose a better word for this is like validation that comes from the people who would be paying. So you can say like on the supply side, so on the product that you're supplying, you have actual commitments from people to help build that product, and that's fantastic. And then the next step is like on the demand side, you know, what conversations have you had with innovators, with startups, with people looking for access to data to build out products and services? I think, yeah, that would be. Do you have any, like proof points there that you could bring in?
Yeah, I can answer that. So basically, because the startup that I was in the competition with last year is actually a health rehab tool, right? So we know a lot of other startups who face this challenge, and we've had a lot of conversations with them, and that's how we've kind of developed this platform. So I think that's a phase to develop out of, kind of just collecting up the conversations and interest, and you know, kind of formally taking it to that stage with building up the pipeline of people who would like to use the earliest versions of the project, because you know, it would work with any person, right? Like it's just assembling biological data that you can use for any kind of problem. So that means like I'm a machine learning developer, and but yeah, we definitely can we definitely have that, so we can just put it together.
So yeah, like an even better if there, you've had these conversations, name the number of organizations you've spoken to. We are already in conversation with 13, 10, 15, whatever it might be, interested companies who might be looking to commission our data. Like, again, that just lends you extra authority.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? I would say, in general, at this early stage, storing people's email addresses and categorizing them based on whether or not they want to find out about your future product, that is such important work to be doing now. You can put it on, sorry, tons of background noise. You could put it in an Excel spreadsheet, but you could start thinking about using a CRM. So if you haven't used one before, this is basically like your sales database and engine. HubSpot for me is like just the best out there, and the free version of HubSpot lets you do so much stuff without actually spending any money. You can build landing pages, you can set up email campaigns, you can do one very basic automation on it. But basically my point being is like start capturing those emails, because that customer database is how you're going to make money in the future. So that is like a side point to really invest time in that. Any other questions on traction, how to frame your progress so far, what data points to include, how to build authority with the judges?
I would have a question actually. So
Sure.
as Frida said, we are currently pitching in order to develop our digital part, so our digital marketplace. However, we have gotten a lot of traction on our physical hubs that are basically our pilot. So if we frame those units, that is fine. I mean, we don't need to have any proof of concept of the digital marketplace, right? It is proof of concept, but we haven't tested the actual digital marketplace yet.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fine. Like,
Okay.
so people call this like bricks to clicks, going from physical to online. And if you can prove that people want it physically, then that is like a pretty strong indication that they want it digitally. So again, you can talk about like number of people you've worked with, signed up, had commitments from, whatever, in a physical space. That's great. It's really valuable. Anyone else?
I'm sorry if you covered this, but is there like the same time limit for each question, or no?
No, it's 5 minutes in total, and I really, this is like your chance to shine, and the judges, like, they're not the enemy, right? They're actually interested to know more about your product and actually probably want to bring to life all of the great stuff that you're doing. And so I think that's why like well-structured and to an extent kind of concise answers means that you have extra time for them to ask them more things about your business and you to kind of show off all of the stuff that you've done and the stuff that you know. Yeah. Actually, a question that came up earlier was about like demos or prototypes of the product. So the team have said that there's going to be like a little plinth where you can store like a version. If you have a physical product, you can actually put it on there during your pitch, and then you can hand it out to the judges during the Q&A, if that would be helpful. Cool.
Just on that,
yeah.
we sent out an email earlier this afternoon asking that you let us know if you're bringing anything to City Hall, so we can let security know or let you know whether it can be brought in or not. Sort of like sharp objects, soil or anything like that can't come in, I'm afraid. But if you've got something, if you're going to be presenting on your iPad, we'd advise not using your 2-minute pitch to show that. Would you agree, Ed?
Yes.
Yeah. It's
kind of eats into
yeah,
time.
those 2 minutes, as Ed said, that's your chance to shine. You can hand the device over to the judges to kind of look at, so they get sight of what it is that you want to show. But there are 8 judges, so yeah, and there's only 5 minutes of questions, so that time's really important to kind of get any additional points about your idea across. So yeah, just kind of consider that before Tuesday. Yeah, that's it from me.
Cool.
And there will be a little table. It's about 1 meter high and 30 centimeters in diameter, so it's not very big. So if you've got like a bigger prototype or something, it might be helpful having a team member on stage holding it with you. So
Awesome. The last topic that we haven't looked at, but I think was worth commenting on, especially for the guys doing like really R&D intensive stuff, is about risk. So, in the category of what's called kind of deep tech, basically the probability, the statistical likelihood of success of your technology is very low. Like the technology risk is really high. The market validation risk and implementation risks can be very high because you're doing things that society desperately needs, but they are really high risk. And so I think there's a nice way of like flipping this. Let's say your R&D cycle is somewhere between 1 and 5 years to actually like get this out to market. You can say, that is why this program is so important. We can get the grant funding to de-risk the product development, but also have access to the partnerships and access to people who will help us implement this product. So I think that's a nice way to frame, some of the challenges about some of the more complex technologies that you're working on. Cool. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the session. So to think about, well, where to take it from here, you should all have access to that Google Doc. If you don't have access to the Google Doc, put your hand up and I'll share it again. You can also add me